Hi everybody, welcome back. On today's video we are going to cover everything you need to go carp fishing. I'm going to break this into a few sections, mainly because day ticket carp fishing and overnight carp fishing require different items, obviously. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to go with very back to basics. I'm not going to push any brands or anything like that. So I'm just going to, go through every single thing that you need in order to go carp fishing effectively. And then in the later on section we'll go over all the bits you need to go night fishing, and then right at the end I'll do a little bit on some end tackle, and we'll summarise right at the very end. Maybe you're a new angler, maybe you're just thinking of getting into carp fishing. Definitely get your notebook and your pen and write some bits down. Like I said, at the end of the video we will summarise everything. I'll go over kind of each item, in a basic to kind of sense. I'm not going to be showing you like hundreds of pounds rods. We're going to go with the very minimal of what you need to fish properly, safely. So first and foremost, the first thing you're going to need for fishing of any kind is the relevant license. Now you can get this in, I think it's a 1 day, 8 day and the full year license. So depending on how much you're going to be fishing, definitely go there to the government website. I'll put a link in the description to the government website and you'll see one on your screen. So in the first section, what we're going to cover is just your standard, day ticket carp fishing. So for this part, what we're going to look at is all the items you need to safely and efficiently carp fish, just in single day sessions, in the summer and the winter. So yeah, so the first thing we'll start with is obviously you're going to need some fishing rods. So definitely check where you're planning to fish, what the limit is on the fishing rods. A lot of places are 2-rod rule. Now if you're just starting carp fishing, I'll definitely suggest that you just start with one single rod, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to put all your rig together, put all your tackle on the rod, and you're just going to get comfortable using one rod at a time. Obviously in time, maybe after a few weeks, if you're doing it quite regularly, you'll get used to it, and then maybe you can break out the other rod. So when I first started carp fishing, I think I went to go outdoors and I picked up a cheap Ron Thompson. I think it was a 12-foot, maybe 2.5 pound test curve rod. I think this cost me, don't quote me on it, but it was roughly around about £15 for the Ron Thompson Evo carp rod. So I started off with that. I then bought I think it was a Shakespeare Omni-X free spool reel, which is a bait runner. And basically, yeah, that's what I started with. It's literally the cheapest of the cheap, but good enough to do what I wanted. So I bought the rod, I bought the reel, and I've got the reel here actually. So this was my first ever reel. It is still use it every now and then, maybe not so much of recent days, but this is a traditional bait runner. So you have your latch on there at the back, and then you just flip that back off, and then you have your front drag at the front. So this cost me, like I say, roughly about £15 when I first bought it brand new, and that was a long time ago. And this is more than adequate to start carp fishing. I've had a few relatively big fish, I'd say 14-pound fish on this. That's probably the biggest I've had. So So yeah, so the first items are going to be your rod, your reel, and then you're going to want some line. Now line comes in loads of different like breaking strains, types, obviously price. To start with, if you're just starting out, just look for something. Probably if you're carp fishing, you probably want something in the region of £10 to £15, somewhere in that area. Depending on the lake that you're fishing at, if you're fishing at a lake where there's some very big fish, maybe you want to start with a bit of a heavier line. But the essentials are a fishing rod, line, and a reel. Obviously, you need your reel to put the line on it. So they're the first starting point. The second thing that you're going to need is you're going to need some bank sticks. This is the final example of a bank stick. I think it was a Dinsmore. I think I paid £5, give or take, for one of these quite a while ago. And the second thing that you're going to need if you're going to be fishing more than one rod is maybe, you know, a cheap buzz bar. I think this one, when I bought this a really long time ago, was somewhere in the region of £12 for two, and it actually came with 3 rod holders. Now obviously if you're fishing one rod, you don't, if you've just bought one rod, you only need just 2 bank sticks, or even 1 bank stick. You don't even need 2. You just want something that's going to hold, you know, your bite alarm, which we'll come on to in a minute. Technically you don't actually need a bite alarm, but it is advisable for carp fishing. Obviously you want to hear, you know, the sound obviously as the line's going through. You can do it without, obviously if you're stalking and bits like that, then obviously you don't necessarily need it. But if you're fishing maybe a couple of rods, then bite alarms are a must. Now these, you can get them really cheap. I think my first set, well I say set, the first one I bought was about £7, maybe less, from, again, Go Outdoors. It was a Ron Thompson, literally just a cheap as chips. It did what it said on the tin, and they still work today. I have them as backups. So literally all it is the cheapest chips, you know, camo, about this big, and literally that's all you need. It just takes a small battery in the back, and there you go, you got your bite alarm. So yeah, now bite alarms come in all different, you know, ranges and prices. You've got your very low end of the scale, which are, you know, going to be £5-6 for one. You might even find a deal where you get a tenner, which gives you 2 maybe. And then you have right the other end of the scale, which is your really expensive ones, like your new ones that are out, like your Delkims, your Foxes, some of the Gardner ATTs. You know, so obviously when you're starting out, you want to be at the lower end of the scale. You never know, you might do it for a couple of months and then think, this isn't really for me. And what you've done is you've spent a lot of money on really high-end gear, and then, you know, not taking it up. So you don't really want to waste your money. So when I started, I was doing it maybe in a couple of months of the year, you know, just for a bit of fun when I had some spare time. As time's gone on, I'm doing it maybe once, twice a week. So naturally what I've done is I've upgraded my gear. Now when you're looking at different gear, you are absolutely spoiled for choice. Go to your budget, read the reviews on the items. You can get some decent cheap gear which lasts, and you can get some more expensive, you know, kind of gear which doesn't. So it is a big game of swings and roundabouts. Definitely do your research on your gear. You do get a lot of people which say you buy cheap, you buy twice, which is true, but if you're not using it heavily and you're just starting out, and you know, you just want something just to get you on the bank so you can start carp fishing, maybe you're going to do it 2-3 times a year. Don't put all the money in, you know, unless you're going to be doing it regularly. If you're going to be doing it regularly, you're going to be, you know, going full at it, it's your full-time hobby, you know, kind of thing, then yeah, shell out. That's what I've done now. I've spent more money. I don't even have the top end gear now, but what I've done is I started off with a small, worked my way up, and gradually I've upgraded my bits of kit here and there, and do you know what I mean? I'm still doing that now. So yeah, definitely what you're going to need, we'll just recap that. So you want a rod, a reel, some line, and then you're going to want a bank stick of some description. Now you don't have to have the bank stick, but it just helps to keep your rod, you know, nice and straight. You can lay it on the floor, obviously, if you do lay it on the floor, then there's a possibility, you know, that you're not going to grab it, or it's going to get dirty, or you're going to scuff it. You know what I mean? It's nothing that's going to break it, but I think just having it nicely on a bank stick or a couple of bank sticks, if you want, I just think that's just a little bit better. So moving on to the next item is going to be part of the carp care. I'll do a summary on carp care, on the stuff you need to safely land and look after a carp and obviously return it to the water. So you definitely 100%, it's a requirement at pretty much every single fishery in England anyway, that you have an unhooking mat. Now I use two. You can get big ones, small ones, you know, you can get cradles, you can get padded, you know, cradles which are just lay flat on the floor. To start off with, just get yourself one or two mats. Now mine are just Westlake mats. I am upgrading, I've got some bits coming for Christmas, but you need to have a mat. Obviously the care of the fish should be your number one priority. Yes, we're hooking a fish, but when we're landing it and taking our photos, you know, or you know, just landing it in general, if you're not taking photos, care is the number one thing for the fish. So don't just hoik it out, rag it about. You know, what you want to be doing is have a nice thick mat or two, like I have. If I get a smaller carp, I'll use my single mat. If I get a larger carp, I'll, you know, double it up. Like I said, for Christmas I'm getting a new one, so I'm getting quite a big, long, padded one. Now, in the future I may get a cradle, but that's for later on. You don't need that to start with. That's not, you know, a necessity. So yeah, definitely need a mat. Then moving on from that, the next thing you need, which is also part of the carp care, you're going to need a big, large, you know, landing net. So most fisheries have specified what size landing net that you need for a particular lake, and this is normally calculated on what the size of the fish are in there. So I think rule of thumb is roughly 42 inches. So again, I use an NGT one. That's like a cheap budget brand. I've used that for years. I've had no problems with it. Mine has two net floats on both of the, you know, the arms, and I think that helps. Just when you put it in the water to land your fish, it just stops it from sinking. You can get ones without, but I think I paid £15 for the net itself. The net will come with obviously your arms, your netting, your floats, and then you'll have what's called a spreader block. So that's on its own. Some do come with the handle. Some of the more expensive brands, you get the handle with it as well. However, to start off with, you just want to go outdoors or online. There's plenty out there. Just a simple, doesn't have to be NGT, just whatever's in your sort of budget. Make sure it's big enough. Make sure you always check the fishery rules of where you're planning to be fishing to make sure you've got the right kit for the job. So, and I think I got a OmniX handle. That was it. I think it was about £10. I think I paid for it. It's basically a 3 meter handle. It's in two sections, and basically what it is, on the end you've just got a female thread and a male thread, and you just screw it into your net. Now, like I say, so that whole landing net came to roughly £25. Like I say, you can buy some cheaper ones online. Obviously always check reviews on the handles. There's some of the cheaper handles, you can try and pick your net up, and if you make the schoolboy error of just trying to lift the whole net up from the end with it being extended, the chances are you're going to snap your handle. The best thing to do is, once you scoop the fish in, don't try and pull the net out of the water. Just gradually bring, you know, the handle all the way to the end so you can grab the spreader block. Then you can kind of, you know, start to maneuver the fish out and use your sling, which is the next item we'll come to. A lot of fishery owners and fishery venues want you to use a sling. Now, a sling is a kind of a device which is for, well, it's been made to either hold carp for very short periods of time. Some of them have floats on them, retention slings, and then you get other kinds which have got some metal loops in them which you can then obviously weight your fish. Now, if you get a really large fish, the last thing you want to be doing is just grabbing the net and yanking it out of the water. What you want to be doing is sliding your sling underneath the net, making sure the fins of the fish are flat to its body. Then you want to zip up the sides and you want to lift the fish out, so it's just more secure, there's less pressure. Obviously with the net, it's got loads of little, you know, holes. It's quite it could be quite a sharp material, if abrasive, shall I say, sorry. And you just lift the fish out, put it, you know, on your mat, and then you can remove the net and the rig out of its mouth, do your weighing, take some pictures, and then when you return the fish back to the water, you know, you just in the sling, once you get it into the water, you unzip one side of your sling, and you know, just let the fish rest for a couple of minutes, and then the fish will swim out. So yeah, sling is definitely on one of the, you know, top things that you definitely want to get, because obviously I'm heavy on the carp care side of things. Some people might say, oh well, you don't need a sling, but if you're at a venue where there's potentially quite large fish, the last thing you want to be doing is dragging it out in a net. Obviously the smaller fish, not too bad, but as soon as you get to, you know, maybe like 10 pound, 15 pound fish, you want to use a sling ideally. That's just my opinion. Obviously, after doing your own research, decide if you actually want to get a sling. So moving on from that, you want to have some forceps or a disgorger. Now, I've always got both in my kit. I've always got a disgorger or two. I've got a few sizes. And what this is for removing the hook from the fish's mouth. Now, I'd probably say 90% of my carp fishing, I don't need to use it, because the way the rigs are designed and the way the carp respond to taking bait is, it's usually just lodged in the lip. So you can grab the hook and, you know, maneuver it backwards. But definitely a disgorger. Have one, you know, just in case the fish has swallowed it back a bit too far and, you know, you can't get to it. Then you're going to want that disgorger that runs down the line and just pops the hook out safely. Obviously you don't want to damage the fish. So a disgorger and or some forceps are definitely worth having in your kit. They're not expensive. You don't have to get the most expensive ones in the world. Just make sure you've got a set made of stainless steel for the forceps, and you can either get the stainless steel or the hard kind of plastic in the disgorger. Now for the next part of the carp care kit, what I think pretty much every single carp fishery in the UK will ask for that you have, sorry, is carp care kit. Now a carp care kit, basically what this means is it's a solution that you can buy. There's loads of different names, brands, and when you hook a fish in the mouth, what you tend to do is, some come with a little brush on the end of the cap, some you use maybe a cotton bud, and what you want to do is when you've landed your fish, where you've hooked the fish, you just want to put a bit of this solution on, and then get a drop or two of water and just seal it. It's a bit like antiseptic, or for us, it's basically for the fish. And if you've pulled the fish in, maybe you see one of its scales are missing on its flank, or it's got a bit of a cut, or, you know, any damage you see on a fish, you want to get into the habit of, you know, just putting a bit of that solution on. You know, it's not expensive, and what you're doing is you're actually looking after the fish. You know, so as soon as you put that solution on, maybe they've got a lifted scale during the battle, maybe they went through some snags and, you know, one of its scales come off, or it got a bit of a cut from a branch. What you want to do is, you know, just put a bit of this solution on with a bit of water, and that kind of seals it, you know, and basically you're doing yourself a favour, because who knows, you might come across that fish in a couple of years, it's gained a few pounds, and it's just, you know, something to think about. Obviously looking after the fish for the fishery, looking after the fish for, you know, the sport itself of carp fishing. So yeah, definitely have the carp care items, which is your solution antiseptic for the fish. You want to have your disgorger and your forceps. You want your not decent, but you want your, you know, unhooking mat and your sling and your big enough landing net. You don't want to use a small landing net. You don't want the fish to be kind of folded in half when you're trying to bring it in. Obviously, it's not comfortable for the fish, and you're going to get some stick for it, let's put it that way, because it doesn't cost a lot to buy these products. Obviously, I know carp fishing is a very, you know, not niche, but it's a very different kind of sport compared to normal fishing. Obviously, it's big fish that you're looking for, maybe after certain types of carp, you know, maybe you're going around the country. It's a kind of a coveted thing where you look after the fish, or you will get stick for it. And if anybody does see you, you know, mishandling fish or anything like that, then the chances are you're going to get banned, and people are going to, you know, go mad, because people take care of the fish, take care of the fisheries, and they just enjoy it. So everybody kind of likes to do the same thing, you know, chip in and keep everything nice. So for the next part, what we're going to be looking at is some of the items that you need, you know, to make it comfortable. So you're going to want a chair of some description. So when I first started, I think what I bought was, you know, a camping chair. It was just one of them, you know, pop out, fold out camping chairs. Obviously, well, quite a few years ago, after I knew I really enjoyed doing this sport, I ended up investing in not so much an expensive one, but something with a bit more comfort, a bit more padding. But the essential thing I would say is you want to be comfortable on the bank. So get yourself a chair of any kind. Start off with a camping chair if you want, you know, and then if you do like it, upgrade to, you know, something with a bit more foam, a bit more padding to make it more enjoyable. The pros and cons of that are, if you just get a normal camping chair, the legs aren't really adjustable, so some banks are quite uneven, or, you know, it's okay if you're fishing flat pegs, but if you've got a really bumpy terrain, then the fishing kind of specialist fishing chair is going to be more, you know, easier. The legs adjust. If you've got a bit of a bump, you know, you can adjust the legs on how it sits. So yeah, you're going to need a chair. The other thing that you're going to need is you're going to need a tackle box. Now I bought a very cheap, I think it was, again, probably from Go Outdoors, just a cheap tackle box. You know, you kind of lifted it up and then two kind of trays pulled up with it, and in there I put all my kind of end tackle when I started out. But you're going to want some sort of container to put all your gear in, you know, like your hooks and rigs, your shots if you're using shots, your floats, obviously if you're float fishing for carp. If you've delved into it a bit more, then, you know, all your bits and bobs, your scissors, you know, stuff like that. So you want a nice box, or just any kind of box that you can keep that stuff in, where it's going to keep it, when you shut it, it's going to keep it dry. You don't want it to all be, you know, wet through. And when you're done with stuff like your alarms or anything electric, you know, you can unscrew it and pop them in the bottom of your box. It just keeps them nice, tidy, dry. Obviously, you don't want to get them wet through constantly. Obviously, they are technically waterproof, but once you finish fishing, you just want to give them a towel, dry off, put them away, keep them ready for the next time. So a tackle box is definitely what I would say is up there with bits that you need. So the next thing on the list that I think is quite essential is a rod bag. Now, this isn't necessarily a must, however, I think it's very valuable because, one, it stores your rods. Two, most of the time, if you get a rod bag, they'll have a few extra pockets in it. So this is good for storing your bank sticks, you know, your buzz bars if you've got any, your landing net. Obviously, they come in all different varieties of rod bags. I think the most common ones that people buy are the type where you can have your rods built up. What this means is your reel stays on the rod and your line and everything stay on the rod. All you do is you pop the sections apart on the rod itself, and you kind of double it up and you slot it into the rod bag. And the rod bag usually has, you know, like a curved section where the reels sit in. So on the back of that, like for my first rod bag, I had a big section at the back where I could put my brolly in. I put my bank sticks. So like I said, they come in all different sections and all different sizes. So definitely have a look at one that'll suit you. Obviously you can get ones for 1 rod, 2 rod, 3 rod, 6 rod. I think the one I have is a 3 up, 3 down. And like I say, what that means is 3 rods are built up, 3 rods are built down. But yeah, you definitely want yourself a rod bag. It just keeps everything nice, clean and dry. So for the next item on the list, you're going to want a rucksack or carry-all of some description that you transport or your kit in. So obviously you're going to want a carry-all for your bait. You could put your tackle box in there, you know, your pack lunch. It's always good to take some food, you know, maybe if it's a warm day, but you know, you might want to take a waterproof jacket in there. You know, you just want something that you can carry all your kit in to the bank, and it just keeps everything organised, that kind of thing. Maybe you want to chuck a first aid kit in there, I know it sounds silly, but it's always worth having a first aid kit. You know, if you get a hook in the end of your finger, or you know you cut yourself on something, you know you want to have maybe some antiseptic wipes and just a basic, very basic first aid kit just in your bag. You know, once you're more experienced, you might just take a few wipes here and there. But for a beginner or a new angler, I definitely recommend just chucking in a cheap, you know, pre-bought first aid kit. It's only a couple of quid. It's definitely worth having. You never know if you're going to need it. In there, you normally get a little wind-up torch. You know, you get some tweezers. You get, you know, a couple of plasters. So it's a very basic kit, but I think it's definitely worth mentioning. It's good to have one of them just chucked in your bag somewhere. So for the next item on the list, we're going to cover is bait. Now this is a very broad one, this is. I'm not going to delve into it too much because I'll let you do your own research on, you know, what you want to fish with. But rule of thumb for fishing and carp fishing, you're going to either be using boilies, pop-ups, you know, sweet corn, tinned meat, you know, depending on what the fisheries say. Obviously always check the rules at your fishery that you're fishing at. Every fishery can be different, but do check on what is allowed and what isn't allowed, because what's allowed somewhere definitely always isn't going to be allowed elsewhere. You know, it's definitely check. But rule of thumb is you're probably going to be fishing with boilies, pop-ups, you know, maggots even for carp fishing, sweet corn, fake maggots, dog biscuits. So there is a huge, you know, range of what you can actually use to feed the fish or to tempt to bite off your, you know, bait. So I'm not going to go into that too much. I'll let you do your research on, you know, bait for carp fishing. If you go online and search in what's the best bait for carp fishing or what to use for fishing for carp, you'll definitely find a lot of results. I would, like I say, I'm not going to say what I use or what you should use because there's no right or wrong answer. As long as you're not using, you know, I don't know, carrots. Although who knows, somebody's probably caught on a carrot. Silly things have happened. So, but definitely look at what bait. I would say don't overbuy it. Depending if you're buying freezer life, shelf life, boilies, then do your research on that. Like I say, that's all I'm going to cover for that. You definitely want bait. Make sure you've got enough for the day. Chuck a tin of sweet corn in your bag, you know, just in case you run out. But you need bait to fish. In the end section of this, we're going to cover end tackle. So I won't go into anything to do with the end tackle right now. We'll cover that later on in the episode. So the next item on the list for fishing, which I should have mentioned earlier, was if you're using alarms and some bank sticks, you're going to want some bite indicators or bobbins. Now, I still use my really cheap set of NGT. 3 of them came in a little pot and they have a little removable weight that you can screw on and off if you're fishing, you know, slack lines, tight lines. Research that if you want to look at it, but you're going to want some bite indicators. And what this does is you clip it onto your line that runs through your bite alarm, and once you've set your reel up and once a carp or fish pulls line from your reel, this weight kind of pulls the line into the V section of the bite alarm so that the wheel can make a noise when the line goes through it. So you don't have to buy them. I mean, if you look online, there's loads of old school methods of, you know, using a tin can lid, you know, with a ring pull on them. You can use, you know, just anything that you can clip onto the line which has got a little bit of weight to it. But if you want to go proper with it, you can just get a cheap set. I think it was like £5 for NGT. Cheapest chips. I've been using them. I do have some Fox ones, some Fox Black Label, which cost like triple the price, double the price even. But I just use them. They've got quite long chains on them, so they work for me. So you definitely want something to indicate that you're getting a bite. The next item on the list is a catapult. Now, obviously, if you're fishing at some sort of, not massive distances, but if you're fishing at, you know, maybe, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 rod lengths out, and you want to put a bit of bait out there just over where your hook might be, then you're going to want either a throwing stick or a catapult. Now I use a catapult. I've had a few different ones. I had a cheap one which lasted me for, you know, maybe a year. I upgraded and I've had that one which has lasted me, you know, maybe a couple of years. So you want just a catapult. These aren't expensive. I would say pay around about a tenner for one, roughly. You can get some decent ones that are cheaper. Have a look around. Like I say, I'm not going to push any items. Go have a look, read reviews. One thing I'll say about any fishing gear or anything to do with, well, buying any products really, not just fishing, is definitely read the reviews, see what other people have said about the item. But same goes for fishing gear. Definitely read the reviews, but you're going to want something to get your bait to your spot if it's out of throwing distance. Most of the time, if it's just a round boilie, you know, you can throw it to where it needs to be, happy days. But for further distances that you can't get there, you definitely want a catapult, a boilie pull, you know, something similar like that, or a throwing stick. Next on the list, if you're planning to, you know, photograph your fish and take the weights, you're going to need some scales. Now, these are just, I'm not going to show you them, but these are just some cheap, well, not necessarily cheap, but just basic entry-level scales for fishing. Definitely get something that's got a hook on the end. You know, I think some people have used some luggage scales. The problem is if you get a big fish and you start to lift it up and it breaks, you're dropping a fish. Obviously that's not good. Just go ahead, if you're planning on weighing your fish, buy yourself some scales. These are digital. You can get, you know, analog scales, you can get digital scales. Go online, have a look. Like I said, read the reviews, find some scales that'll do the job for you. And yeah, it's not an essential item though. I will say it's an optional item. You don't need it to fish. You can fish quite easily without, you know, some scales. But as you progress, you probably will want to start weighing your fish, maybe taking notes. I always have a notebook and pen in my fishing gear, just so I can log, you know, if I catch a decent fish, I'll make a note of the time, the date, what fish it was, where I caught it from, and its weight. And I always put on the end what I caught it on, you know, and then maybe I'll be back at this lake in, you know, maybe 6, 7, 8 months. I can refer back to my book and think, oh, right, okay, last time I was here, I fished this peg, I had this really nice fish, I was using this bait this time of year. You know, you can go back and have a look at that. So the next item on the list is quite a cynical one really. It's just a hand towel. So whenever you're handling fish, carp obviously aren't very slimy, but if you get a bream, if you're a carp angler or you're looking to start carp fishing, at some point you're going to get hit with a bream. Bream are the slimiest fish I've ever seen. But they're just, you know, when you touch them or unhook them, there's just slime and stuff everywhere. And just in general for fishing, obviously when you get wet hands and stuff like that, you just want like a little hand towel that is just kept for fishing. Clean it regularly. You know, you've just got something to dry your hands with. When we go on to the end tackle, we'll look at, you know, talk about PVA bags and mesh bags, solid bags, stuff like that, but we'll cover that later. But you're going to want a hand towel just so you've got a nice dry hands, obviously throughout your session. If you get, you know, I don't know, you've just lifted a fish in the water, you want to put a new bag on, then you're going to want dry hands and you're going to want a dry rig. So definitely a hand towel, that is definitely a must. So I think that's it for the list. There is one more item that I'm going to mention from this list, which I think is definitely a must. However, it's not always the case. I think an umbrella, when I say umbrella, I don't mean, you know, your Sports Direct £5 umbrella. I mean a fishing umbrella. I think that is a must. One, in the UK, as you'll all know, the weather is so unpredictable. 1 minute it's beaming out sun, next minute it's raining. So I have always had a cheap, not necessarily expensive, you know, just I think it was made by Hardware, I think it's called, or NGT, something like that. It's a cheap brolly, you know, that's quite a large brolly. All that means is if it starts to rain or maybe the wind's blowing right in your direction on your back or something like that, you can pop your brolly up and it's got some shelter from the elements. I think that's a must. I've always, if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll see that I take my bivvy on every single session and I take a day shelter as well. So if it's not so bad weather, I'll stick a day shelter up. This is not a must, I must say that, but in my opinion, the umbrella is a must. Take what you please from that. If you don't want to go with it, you don't have to. I'm just putting it out there that I think it's definitely a must. So in the next section, what we're going to look at is the bits you're going to need for night fishing. So the tackle is, well, I say tackle, the gear is pretty much the same, apart from there's some extra bits added on. So for instance, you're still going to need your rod, your reel or reels, depending if you're fishing 1 or 2 rods. You're going to need your line. You're going to want, or well, really you need a set of bite alarms. Now, this is optional if you get one with a receiver. Obviously, you don't have to have a receiver. However, if you are night fishing and you're going to be in your bivvy and you're going to be, you know, nodding off, I would say that a receiver is pretty high on the list, because you're going to have other people around the lake. If you've got your alarms really high and you get a fish in the middle of the night, you're going to be waking up every single person on the lake and they're going to be a bit annoyed with you. Now, I have done this myself in the past, so I'm a bit of a hypocrite. However, as soon as I realised this, I then went out and got myself a set. Now, I haven't got the most expensive alarms. I've got the Sabre S4, which is 3 alarms with 1 receiver. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a link up here so you can have a look at that, with the ones I have. Like I say, it's just a basic, very basic set of alarms with a small receiver unit, which you can turn the volume right down off the alarms and the sound just comes from the little receiver. You put that in your bivvy or in your pocket or somewhere near you, and there's a lot less chance it's going to wake everybody else up, but it should wake you up. So you've got your alarms with your receiver. You're going to need some sort of shelter. Now, some people in some of the videos you see, you know, just in the heat of summer, they'll just, you know, hustle it out and just go into the stars. I wouldn't recommend this to start with. Obviously, if you're new and you're just planning to a few night fishing sessions, definitely get yourself a bivvy or an umbrella system, which is a bit like a bivvy, but you know, it's a giant umbrella with sides and a front panel that you can zip up, pretty much like a small tent. Now, in some very rare cases, you can use a small tent. However, I would advise against this, as 1, you're going to be cramped, 2, the fishery might not allow it, and 3, the difference between a tent and a bivvy is very different, because a tent has guy lines and stabilizing ropes, if you like, that you peg into the ground. This is very dangerous on a lake, as if another angler is walking around, maybe the toilet block or something is past your peg, if they go around at night and they trip over, you know, you've got to be safe. So bivvies are designed for this, and they are a lot more rigid. They don't need ropes to hold them down for the most part. So I'll definitely get yourself a bivvy. Now, look online, do your research, get a small little bivvy that will be enough for you in your kit, or an umbrella system or whatever, but definitely need a bivvy or an umbrella. The next part of that is going to be a bed chair. So obviously you've got your bivvy set up, you're going to want something to sleep on. Now, yes, you've got your chair, but you can't really sleep on a chair. Get yourself, you know, not necessarily decent, but a decently, you know, reviewed bed chair. So I've got the Foxios 2 bed chair, I think it is. That costs, I think it was roughly around 150 to 170 pound, don't quote me on it. But you can get a decent bed chair for a lot less than that. I got that because I go camping a lot as well, so I use it for both. I use it for fishing and for camping, and I found it really comfortable. So if I'm doing a week of fishing or 2 weeks of camping, I know that bed chair is going to do me just fine. So you want to have a look and find yourself a decent, you know, decently reviewed bed chair. Look online, ask in the Facebook groups, you know, what's a decent bed chair for starting up. You'll get some very low ones as in price, and then you'll get some people which recommend expensive ones. Now with the bed chair, I think most of the time the more you pay, the more you're going to get in terms of comfort. So have a look, do your research, have a look around, see what the people are saying, and then make your, you know, informed decision of what you want. Now the next item to go on top of this bed chair is going to be a sleeping bag. Now you can get away with, you know, just your cheap camping sleeping bag. However, With fishing being colder, you know, a lot of the times you'll probably sleep with your bivvy or brolly door open. You know, if you get a bite in the middle of the night and your alarms go off, you're going to be literally running out. So you want something that's going to keep you warm. Now you can get 5 season sleeping bags, you can get 4, 3 season, 3 season. Again, do your research. Look at when you're going to be fishing. If you're going to be a summer fisher kind of person, then you maybe just want, you know, maybe a 2 or 3 season. But if you're going to be battling it out like I do in winter, then you're going to want to get yourself probably a decent 5 season sleeping bag. I'm not going to push any brands. Like I said, do your research, see what you can find, and ask about, read reviews, see what the best ones out there for your budget. So the next thing on the list for night fishing is you're going to want a cooker. You're going to want either tea, coffee, a hot drink of some description. You're going to want to cook yourself some food. You know, maybe you just want to boil some water and have a pot noodle, or maybe you want to cook yourself some bacon and eggs. You know, you can go as grand as you want on this one. So what I use for mine is literally just to go outdoors, single burner with a small butane bottle, and I have 2 of them which I use now. That does more than fine for me. Again, I know I keep going on about this like a broken record, but do your research. If you want to keep it compact, you can get the small burners, you can get an NGT one which loads of people use, and they're just fine, nothing wrong with them at all. And they basically have a metal kind of flexible tube which comes out and you screw it into a gas bottle. Some of them you can screw straight on top of the bottle and they're only, you know, maybe yay big. But have a look about, see what you want to use, but make sure you've got something that you can, you know, 1, make yourself a drink, something warm. 2, make yourself some food. You know, if you're not just eating sandwiches, you want something, you know, maybe in the morning you want a bacon sandwich. So definitely take, you know, some sort of cooking aid so that you can cook some food. Obviously moving on to the next part, which is food. Definitely make sure you take yourself something to eat. You know, you're going to be on the bank for a good few hours. If you're night fishing, you're going to be at least 24 hours. So make sure you pack some food. Now this could be a couple of pot noodles. It could be, you know, a little package. You might have a couple of sandwiches, a pot noodle. Maybe you got some rashers of bacon, a couple of sausages and eggs. You know, definitely take yourself some food. I think for me on the bank, it's got to have a certain level of comfort, which means I don't want to be hungry. I don't want to be thirsty. I don't want to be freezing cold. So I want to be comfortable. So food, drink, you know, you need to make sure you take that along with some bottled water, just some clean water that you can drink. If all else, you've got some water that you can have a drink of water if you're hungry. I know I just said water a million times, excuse the language. But you definitely need to keep yourself hydrated, keep yourself, you know, not hungry. You need to be full, and it just makes the experience so much better. So a cooker and some food with water is definitely up there. So next on the list of something that you're going to need if you're night fishing is suitable clothing. Now this should actually go in the other category as well, from the bit that we spoke about earlier if you're just your day fishing. So it applies to both really. So what you need is, you definitely need suitable clothing. If you're fishing in summer and you're wearing shorts, t-shirt and a hoodie, just always have something in your bag. A raincoat, some, you know, long trousers, just to keep yourself from the elements. The weathers can change so quickly, it's unreal. You want to definitely have the option, if you're a bit cold on an evening, you know, you pull your trackies on, or, you know, just some joggers over the top, or put an extra coat on. Definitely go prepared. That's a big one for me. I did it a few times where I went underprepared and it ruined the experience. And the last thing you want to do is ruin your time on the bank. Obviously it's meant to be enjoyable. So definitely go prepared in terms of clothing. Like I said, do your research. If you're fishing through winter, maybe you want a 3-piece, you know, bib and brace with a jacket, that kind of thing. Do your research. Definitely go equipped. Same with boots. You need boots. I use boots for my fishing, and I think it's for when you get the muddy banks, especially in winter, that you want to be using something sturdy. So yeah, for me, boots is a must. I always wear my boots on the bank. You know, if I'm night fishing, I maybe got some Crocs. I like my Crocs just to jump out in the night. I ain't got time to tie my boots on, so I literally just chuck my Crocs on, run out, you know, land the fish and whatever, and go from there. So yeah, boots for me are a definite must. It's not an actual requirement, however, I think fishing on uneasy banks or uneasy pegs, you're definitely going to want some sturdy boots. Now these don't have to be expensive. I think you can get a pair of Dame boots for roughly around £25 and they're pretty decent. Just head to your Sports Direct and have a look, see what they've got. Walking boots are pretty decent too, and yeah, just something, and it keeps your feet warm. So the next thing that's a must for night fishing, and if you're fishing winter, in day fishing, as the nights draw in and get a lot darker, you're going to want to get yourself some sort of light, head torch. Now I know a lot of smartphones have torches, but it's always good to have a couple of different options. So I myself, I have small hand torch, I have, you know, just a basic head torch, and I also have a bit of a bigger, you know, brighter LED torch. I do have a bivy light as well, but it's not in my category of must. If you've got head torches and other torches, then I think you'll be just fine. Now these bivy torches, that's, like I say, it's an optional one, but they go from all different kinds of money, and depending on how much you pay, or depending on how good they are, how long the battery lasts, so on. Leading on to my next item, I would say a power bank of some description is definitely a must. It's not, like I said, it's not 100% must, but I think obviously if you're using your phone, or maybe, I don't know, you've taken a tablet to watch, you know, a bit of whatever on a film or a TV show or something, a power bank is definitely going to give you obviously extra power. You can recharge your phone, you can recharge, you know, some torches are rechargeable. You can recharge a torch, like I say, your iPad, any other devices. If you use a deeper sonar, then obviously you can use one of them. I won't cover that too much in today's video, as it's definitely not an essential. It's more of a luxury or a nice to have kind of thing. Yeah, so I think I've covered everything pretty much that you need for day fishing and night fishing. Obviously I'll discuss end tackle in a minute, but if I've missed anything, like I say, at the end of this I will do an on-screen list of every single thing that you need, and I'll do two different sections. Obviously I'll do three different sections, sorry. I'll do your day fishing, night fishing, and then your end tackle. So as we move on to the end tackle section, I'm not going to go into each individual item in too much depth. I'm just going to give the basic overview of what you want to have in your tackle, you know, your end tackle or your tackle box, or you know what's you're going to use to actually catch the fish. So first thing on there we're going to go with is some scissors. Now you want some sharp scissors for cutting your line, you know, that kind of thing. If you need to cut, I don't know, a bit of bait up or something like that, you want to have a decent sharp pair of scissors. Then the next thing you're going to want in there is you're going to want some spare line. So whatever you've got on your rod and reel, you want, you know, maybe your spool, if it's a small spool, you just want to have extra in your tackle box. Obviously if you, I don't know, if you get a crack off or you snap your line or something like that, or just in general you for making rigs, if you're making your own rigs, then you're going to want to have some sort of line. So I've always got a couple of spools in my bag, just in case, you know, maybe I've been casting for a while and I want to, you know, renew my line. I'll just pull maybe 5 or 6, 7 rod lengths off, cut the line, and you know, you've got fresh line. Or maybe you want to re-spool your reel, something like that. Maybe you haven't got enough line on it, you've had to cut some off, you had a break off at distance and your reel's only half full. You want to be able to replenish your line on your reel. Next thing I'd have in there is some hooks, and you can choose a whole variety of hooks. Like I say, I'm not going to go into this too much, The size of the hook depends obviously a lot on the fishery. Definitely, like I said, check your rules for where you're going. Some of them will have a maximum size of what hook you can use, again with barbed or barbless. Most fisheries I think are barbless. On a couple of them they're micro barbed, but definitely check the rules of what you can and can't use. Obviously you don't want to get caught by the bailiff using something you shouldn't be. Obviously the rules are there for a reason. They have their own reasons of why they want you to use a particular size hook and bits and bobs, so definitely follow that. The next thing in there, you're going to want some rigs. Now if you're just new to this and you're just looking at picking up and starting carp fishing or something similar, or you've maybe just started and you're wondering what you should be doing, I'd definitely go for pre-tied rigs to start with. These are in the box. You get a hook length, well in packet, sorry, you get a hook length with like a hair on, or depending what rig you bought, with the hook on, and literally all you're going to do is you're going to basically tie them to your line with your lead and whatever. So definitely use pre-tied rigs to start with. Obviously if you do want to have a look at some of the rigs I use and want to start looking at how to tie your own, I'll put a video link up here where you can check out one of my other videos on the top 3 rigs that I use currently. So the next thing you're going to have in there is you're going to want some lead weights. So depending on the size of the lake you're fishing and the style of fishing you're going to be doing, you're going to want different weights. So they vary in size. You can go, I think 1 ounce, maybe even less, all the way up to like 4.5 ounces. So I think a good starting point, obviously this isn't 100% correct, it's not a fact, I'm just saying in my personal opinion, I think the best starting point is going to be around 2 to 2.5 ounce lead for like a small to medium sized lake. That's what I've used. I use that now. Even on some of the bigger lakes I maybe only go to 3 ounce, but the rule of thumb I use 2.5 ounce leads depending on what I'm fishing. So these leads that I use, I've got a swivel on them basically, and it comes as it is. It's like a flat pair lead, and you've got a little swivel on the end, and what this is for is to put on your lead clip system. So yep, here's the lead. This is a 2.5 ounce, it's called a flat pair lead, and that's the swivel that I was talking about. And what this is this enables me to clip it onto my quick change lead clip, which is the next item. So the quick change lead clip is basically these. Now you can buy these all different, shapes, not shapes, size, all different styles, and yeah. So what you've got here, you've got a tail rubber, and you pull this off and it looks like this. So you get these in a pack, and then what you're going to do is on this section here, you're going to put your lead clip on there, and your lead's going to sit on there like that. Then what you're going to do is take your tail rubber, and you're just going to put it on ever so slightly, moisten it a little bit, and that's going to go on like that. So you don't want to push it on too tight, because the whole idea of this is if a fish gets snagged and you've been fighting a fish, then this can pop off, and basically what you're left with is your line, which runs through here, and your hook length, which is here, and you are directly in contact with the fish. So you drop the lead, you discard in it, and then you have to replace it on the next time. So yeah, you're going to want some of these lead clips. And then to follow on from that, you're going to possibly want some anti-tangle tubing, which is this stuff, or rig tube, or it comes in lots of different names, silicone tubing. And I cut off maybe 8 inches, and what I do is I just pop it in the end of my tail rubber like so, and my line goes through this section here, and it comes out the other end here. And basically I think this is good, and a lot of fisheries want you to use this as when you're playing the fish, if it kites the other way or pulls away, this rubber here just protects the fish a little bit from the line. Obviously, the line's quite thin in diameter, so it can be quite abrasive. But yeah, so you definitely want that in your tackle box. Now, you might be going the other way and fishing an inline lead, which will look something like this. So the line goes through the middle of the lead and comes out the other end, and you've got a swivel on the end there. So thing to note about these are some fisheries want you to fish a safe lead system, which if some of these are classed as not safe leads, unless the swivel can pull out very easily if it gets snapped. Obviously you don't want to tether the fish to anything, you want to be as careful as you can. So yeah, so you want some leads in you. Basically you want some leads, something that's going to create the bolt effect. When the fish picks the hook up, it's just going to sink the hook into its lip. And yeah, what else do we need? So in there you would have, we covered it earlier, you'd have your disgorger, your forceps, your scissors, your line. Obviously in there you'd have your floats, your leads, your lead clips, your leads obviously, and if your rigs, they'd also be in there. And I'm just trying to think of anything else. If you're using PVA bags, obviously you'd have spare PVA bags in there. If you're using mesh, these are all baiting methods, so do your research on PVA bags. Now we'll be doing a video on that shortly, on making up pre-tied PVA bags, and I'll also include in there how to make some small mesh bags. They're basically just small parcels of bait that you can, with the mesh you can hook it onto your hook, cast it out, and there's a small parcel of bait around your hook bait. And with the solid PVA bag, what you've got is you've got your hook in the bag, you've got your bait in the bag, and you've got your lead in the bag, and that's all sealed. And when you cast it out and it hits the bottom, that basically forms out a small pile of, you know, bait around your hook bait to attract the fish in. So definitely look that up. I'm not going to cover that in this. Obviously I'm not teaching you how to fish, I'm just telling you the essential things in my opinion. Obviously other people might, you know, have other things that they think is essential, but I'm trying to cover the bare bones, what you need to do to fish competently and safely, you know, in order to go carp fishing or get into carp fishing, and, you know, be sensible kind of thing. So I think that's it. Like I said, I'm going to do a little summary following on from this, which you'll see in a second. I'll just overlay it on, you know, some of the footage that I've got from some of my previous sessions. I'll try and go through anything that I have missed. If I have missed anything, like I say, I do apologise. It should be in the next section, but to the best of my knowledge at the moment, unless I've forgot some minor details, these are the items that you need to go carp fishing. Like I say, we've done just the standard day sessions, we've done, you know, overnight fishing, and I've gone through some very, very basic, you know, end tackle kind of stuff. Obviously there could be a few bits missing, but I'll definitely pinpoint it in the next section, as I'll make a list for you. I'll also put these details in the, you know, in the description section below. Like I say, if there's anything you're unsure about or you just want to ask a question, be sure to leave a comment down below. Please do like the video if you do enjoy it, and please subscribe if you like to see these kind of videos. There's a few different session videos I've done. I'll do some reviews on different bits as well, and some unboxing and setups. Definitely head over to my channel and check them out if it's something that you're interested in. So yeah, that's it. Like I say, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it covers everything for you. Like I said, just do your research on all your kit. That if you're thinking of buying a certain rod, do some research on it. Same for anything that you buy, just double check online, read a few different articles, speak to people in Facebook groups. There are 10 a penny on Facebook these days, and there's some decent people in them groups who can help you out. beautiful, beautiful fish. Absolutely mega, and it's awesome. Definitely paid off. What a brilliant fish.